Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, former South Sudanese rebel leader and VP Riek Machar is confirmed as having fled to DR COngo. After 2 years of civil war, his absence throws the future of a hard-won peace deal in his homeland into question. Also, the Nigerian military targets militants around Lagos after a series of attacks on oil and gas pipelines. Some locals have been caught in the crossfire between security forces and their targets. And the WHO works with DR COngo in an ambitious vaccination campaign in a bid to head off the spread of a yellow fever outbreak in which hundreds have died so far this year. Well, first, the UN's said that its mission in DR COngo helped with the extraction of South Sudan's Vice President Riek Machar from a spot near the border between the two countries. Now, he led a 2-year rebellion against his rival, President Salva Kiir, before he returned to Juba this year under the terms of a peace deal that was settled last August. That arrangement now seems to be in jeopardy after fatal fighting broke out last month. Machar has been sacked as VP and is now in DR COngo. Our Alan Boswell brings us more.
The former Vice President Riek Machar, the area of the country where he looks to have fled after being essentially pushed out of Juba by the government, is an area with a lot of jungle this time of year because it's rainy season and the government was launching heavy offensives against him. And he appears to have seemed to have limped across the border essentially into the Congo, and the UN said that they've been giving him medical assistance, and it appears now that the Congolese government have him in their care, according to the UN. What happens to him now? They say he's going to hold a press conference, and his aides say that he will soon go to another country. The Congolese didn't seem to really ask for this. It more seemed that this was the only place that Riek Machar was able to get to.
So what does all this uncertainty mean for that hard-won peace deal that was settled last August?
Well, the international community really faces a tough political impasse now on the peace deal because the events in July showed that their peace plan was essentially never really accepted by the government of South Sudan. And the events since then have pretty much confirmed that, as the South Sudanese government tried really hard to kill Riek Machar and end the peace process. And so now he's in exile. They've replaced him. The options of sending him back into the capital with his troops to have this all play out again is obviously very problematic. But the international community has yet really seemed to want to admit that the peace plan they worked on for so long and tried to impose has essentially just been thwarted and doesn't have a path forward.
In the wake of protests on Wednesday in which at least one person was killed in Bamako, access to social media in Mali has been inexplicably restricted. Police opened fire after hundreds of people took to the streets in protest over the arrest of the talk show host Ras Barth. He was detained on Monday after criticising the country's military on air and had asked Malians to support him on Facebook. The government's not given any official explanation about the media blackout, but many in Bamako are frustrated by the move.
I saw that my Viber app was working, but Facebook was not. It's very annoying.
I'm against the blocking of Facebook. It's not worth it because I think the site is a frivolous distraction and you can't take what's written on it seriously.
It's bizarre because freedom of expression is one of the fundamental tenets of democracy. For a country that calls itself a democracy, like Mali, it's really worrying.
Look now at some news in brief. Pro-government fighters in Libya say that at least 8 people have been killed after suicide attackers detonated 2 car bombs in the city of Sirte. The death toll could rise, and militia battling jihadists in the Islamic State group's former stronghold think extremists from outside of the city may have staged the attack. This is IS militants feel the pressure of a 3-month operation to force them from the city. A dawn-to-dusk curfew's been brought in the Congolese city of Beni after several deadly protests this week over the government's failure to prevent repeated massacres there. At least 51 people were slaughtered last weekend in a machete attack that's been blamed on Ugandan ADF militia. It was the latest in a string of similar raids. On the week that marked the 4th anniversary since the Marikana massacres in South Africa, loved ones of the 34 striking miners that were shot dead by police have been told the government will pay them damages. It's a victory for those left injured and the families of those killed in what was the worst police violence in the country since the end of apartheid. Well, the Nigerian army has launched an operation against militants around Lagos after a series of attacks in the area. Oil and gas pipelines have been vandalized and sabotaged, and some locals have been caught in the crossfire between security forces and their targets.
Many people here in Ishawu have lost someone in recent violence. The father and sister of Babatunde Shogunre are in mourning. They believe he was shot dead by militants from the faraway Niger Delta.
They rescue the man these militants take away. And from there, there's somebody shoot from the bush, which my son was killed on that day.
The scale of the violence and its proximity to Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, has jolted security forces into action. Operation Awate, or Wipe Them Out in the Hausa language, is underway, and more police posts have been set up in the affected towns. But the suspected militants are often more familiar with the mangrove swamps than the security forces are.
They've taken advantage of the way the swampy nature of the area and the forest, the thick forest there, under the cover of the thick forest, to vandalize the pipeline. And of course, later when they're not able to do that, engage in some criminal activities within that area.
In Ishawu, people have little faith in the security forces. These men have formed a vigilante group to keep militants at bay. They say that militants launch attacks on speedboats from these mangrove swamps.
We believe the camp will stay there. The camp will stay there.
A suspected militant camp remains intact just beyond this tree line. This pastor fled along with his family a few weeks ago. While he comes here daily to tend to his livestock, he is afraid to return home for good.
Me and my family, we ran away. We moved. We leave the house and leave the pig. So we moved to the church.
Those who remain in Ishawu stick to the centre of town for safety and numbers. But gunfire can still be heard at night coming from the creeks despite the ongoing military operation.
And finally, one of the largest emergency vaccination campaigns ever set up in Africa is currently underway. It's in response to an outbreak of yellow fever that began in Angola in January before spreading to DR COngo. Nicolas Chemin has more.
The pain of the needle going into the arm is never pleasant for young children, but their parents know vaccines are vital. The outbreak of yellow fever that started in Angola in January has spread to Congo. The government and NGOs are trying to vaccinate some 10 million people in 10 days, especially in big cities.
Kinshasa is crucial because yellow fever spreads much more easily in an urban environment. Considering the large number of people here, it's more dangerous.
Yellow fever can kill up to 50% of the most severe cases. There is no effective treatment, only the vaccine can protect people from getting the virus.
We queued for a long time because I knew that this outbreak had killed many people in Angola. We came here to protect our health. We waited patiently here to get this vaccine and go home.
To contain the current outbreak, the emergency stockpile of 6 million vaccines was depleted 3 times. So Congo is using a new method. People receive 20% of the normal dose, and that will protect them for at least a year. Here, workers fumigate areas of Kinshasa where cases have been reported. If yellow fever takes hold in the megacity, some experts fear infected mosquitoes could travel beyond the Central African region and the epidemic could go global.
And finally, safely sectioned off. Conservationists in Tanzania are keeping elephants away from human settlements by chucking condoms filled with chili powder at them. Condoms are packed with chili and soil and a firecracker. Animals feel the burn once that is set alight and they explode. The tactic's part of a 4-step process that's proved so successful that volunteers in northern villages are being trained in it. It's a non-violent way of protecting their homes without hurting the animals. Previously, many used spears for the job. And I will not apologise for my rather proudly written pun there. Well, that is, though, what we're going to have to leave it for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us. Please do so again if you can. Take care.